We're here today with Linda Lei Wen, and Linda's a egg donor for surrogates here within the Yulon company. I'm going to ask you a few questions about your past and your history, and is that okay?
Yes, that sounds great.
Good. Okay. So Linda, tell us a little bit about yourself, about where you're born and where you were raised, and a little bit about your education.
I was born in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I was raised in a suburb next to Charlotte called Belmont, North Carolina. I went to elementary and high school in Belmont, North Carolina, and then I went to university at North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay, and when you were in school, what did you study and when did you graduate?
I studied biological sciences and earned a degree of Bachelor's of Science in Biological Sciences. And then I graduated, I started in 2006 and then I graduated in 2010. So right on time.
And what company do you work for, and how did you get involved in your work efforts?
I work for a pharmacogenomics company. I started working.
What's that, Linda? What's a pharmacogenetics company?
A pharmacogenomics company basically works in DNA genotyping for big pharmaceutical companies or other contract research organization companies. My company specifically does DNA genotyping for big pharma clinical trials.
Is this a United States company or a Shanghai company?
It is a United States company, but I moved to Shanghai in order to start a site there. I manage a lab there for DNA genotyping for FDA-regulated clinical trial data.
Okay, so what does that mean? You manage a company for FDA-required clinical data. What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
On a day-to-day basis, I manage around 5 to 6 scientists as they do DNA genotyping. Our results go to clinical trials that will eventually one day be FDA-approved medications that people will get prescribed by their doctors.
Have you ever done egg donation work before?
I have never done egg donation
And what brought you to do the egg donation work?
I personally have friends that have had trouble conceiving after they've been married, and I just feel that as a woman myself, and I want to have children one day. I think that all women deserve the right to be a mother, and I don't think that biological reasons should ever keep them from doing that. And so I want to help the best that I can.
Can you tell me a little bit about your family? Are you married, first of all? And tell us a little bit about your family, whether you're married or not married.
I am not married. I have a younger brother, and my mom and dad, they all live in North Carolina as well. And I have family on both sides from my parents, and they all live in Vietnam.
So tell us about your father. What does your father do for a living?
My father is a self-made entrepreneur. He purchases businesses and then flips them for profit.
Mm-hmm. And what about your mother?
My mother is a wonderful stay-at-home mother that has taken good care of my brother and myself.
Very good. Do you have any children?
I do not have any children, but I hope to have a lot one day.
Very good. Can you tell us a little bit more about the job? What, in terms of what's your favorite thing about working with the pharmacogenetic company?
My favorite part of working for my company is that it allows me to learn more and more about science and the field of genetics and where it's going. I do that mostly by traveling to conferences around the world, learning about different regulatory policies that either are evolving or new policies that I didn't already know. From the FDA in the US to different policies in Europe through the European Union, and then now that I live and work in Shanghai in China, I'm also learning a lot about Chinese pharmaceutical regulations as well.
So what are some of your interests? What do you like to do?
Well, I really like to travel. I really love Europe, and I also really like to play soccer and watch soccer on TV. I like to go running. I have a treadmill in my apartment, luckily, so I get to run inside fairly regularly. And then twice a week, my friend and I, we hired a personal trainer to do circuit training. So I get a lot of exercise.
So you're concerned about your health?
I am. I like to stay relatively thin and in shape as much as possible because I really love to eat food. So.
What food do you like to eat? Yeah, I had lunch with you, so I know you enjoy eating. So what's the story? What do you like to eat?
Well, now that I live in China, I really miss American food. So lots of cheeseburgers, fried chicken. My favorite foods, I would say, are French fries and macaroni and cheese. But I really love Italian food, French food. I even like British food. I like it all.
In terms of other things, what's your favorite thing about the traveling?
About traveling, I really like to. I studied languages a lot growing up. My native languages would be Vietnamese and English, but I studied Spanish for most of my life and then French for part of my life. So since I get to travel to Europe a lot, I get to use Spanish and French pretty frequently, and it's nice to get to practice that.
So you told me a story about how your parents had a certain little work ethic as you were growing up. Can you tell us about that? How you weren't required to do certain things, but you had to stay home and study?
Yes, well, my parents never made me get an after-school job like most teenagers have to do. They really just wanted me to focus on my grades and get good grades so that I could get into a good college and get a degree. So when I graduated from college, my parents were a bit worried about how I would blend in with the workforce, but when I did pretty well. I luckily got a really good job before I even graduated from college, and I've been with the same company ever since, and I love my job. I enjoy it very much. I feel like I'm helping people with their medical care and also helping people in the future to improve prescriptions and the drugs that clinical trials I'm helping conduct now will do for people in the future.
You mentioned when we were talking earlier about how your company does something very unique with genetic mapping. Can you kind of briefly in layman's language tell us what that is, how that works?
Basically, what we do is we look for a single nucleotide polymorphism in a certain gene, depending on what gene region we're actually studying. For example, for humans, when they, whenever they metabolize medications that you are given by a doctor, everyone metabolizes it differently based on what genes you have in your body. And so, for example, we do testing on the 2D6 gene, which is directly connected to codeine, which is in a lot of morphines and like other codeine-based medications. And so if you, as a person, are a slow metabolizer for that gene, you would need less of the medication than someone who turns out from the DNA test is found to be a fast metabolizer. If you're a fast metabolizer, you would need more to get the same standard of care that the slow metabolizer person gets.
So tell us a little bit about how you spend your time in Shanghai. You live in Shanghai full time, right?
Yes.
And so how do you spend your time outside of work?
Outside of work, I mostly hang out with friends. We go to a lot of the Shanghai museums. I actually did not know that much about Chinese culture and history prior to moving to Shanghai, so I'm doing my best to go to museums and learn a little bit more about Chinese history. I also have a private Mandarin tutor that I see twice a week,
Very nice.
So I'm struggling, but barely swimming to learn Mandarin. It's a very hard language to learn, but I'm doing my best. And hopefully, I hope I will be better at Mandarin one day.
So are you interested in music, reading, going out and seeing the sights in Shanghai? What kind of
Yes, I love movies. Movies is probably one of my more favorite things to do. Unfortunately, living in China, I don't get to see as many of the new American new releases as they come out, but I get to watch little bits on Netflix every now and then when they come to Netflix. I love TV, and I like to keep up on news and politics and everything as well. I really enjoy history.
How about things like music, art? Do you do anything in those areas?
When I was a child, I used to play the flute, the piano, and the violin as a child.
Very good.
Yes, but the flute and the piano was more because I was in band in school. But my parents also, after I stopped taking band, they still made me continue the lessons. But
Very good.
when I left for college, they let me stop. But for a while, I was playing multiple musical instruments.
Okay, so you told us about your health habits. Let me see. So, are you willing to work with the ULAN organization, the IVF doctors, and the OB/GYN doctors to take all the necessary tests and screening to qualify, and to travel out of your state or out here out of the Shanghai if necessary?
Yes, absolutely.
And are you willing to work under the instruction of the ULAN support staff to help further along the egg donation process to ULAN?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay. Are you willing to work exclusively with ULAN during the period of the egg donation period?
Yes,
This is
definitely.
good. Good. I think that's it.
Yay.